Testing should be live. And if anyone is already here or as you join in, say hello in the chat. It's always good for me to double check that you can hear me as well. And trying something different today too, where in StreamYard, which is what I use to do the live streams, you can also stream on YouTube vertical, but the formatting looks a little weird there. So it was an experiment. So if you do end up on there, I didn't share that link anywhere. But if you are watching from there, I don't know how it's going to play out on the vertical stream. Let me just pull up some stuff and get situated as people are joining. We're a couple minutes early here. So we'll see how many people join in today. Quite a few RSVPs for this one. I think that kind of happens a lot too for the first book of the year. And this one, I'll go into it more again, obviously, as people come in. But this one was really, really good. I really like this book. If I'm looking for one book to recommend for people that are getting into machine learning that don't have experience in it, or just a tiny bit, this would be one that I would be pushing people towards now. And the author did some really popular ones, 2 editions of the same title, except for with PyTorch, it was with TensorFlow, which I did not read in the past, but people said was really good as well. So if you happen to read, if you've read those in the past, let me know in the chat. Again, we're waiting for people to roll in. If you also want to say where you're watching from or why you're interested in machine learning or what you've been doing with it so far, that's always really fun to hear about. And I'll go into a little bit more of the format. Also, I'll share a link. So if you want to join the video and audio discussion, you can. I'm going to share that a little bit later, just as more people join in. All right, now it's officially 1 o'clock starting time. I think we'll see more people pop in here. Again, I'm going to give a couple minutes for people to roll in before we go through everything. As that's happening, I'll share some links in the chat. This is the book. So if you haven't read this and you want to go check it out, or when we talk about it and you think it's interesting, you can go check this out here. But let me get up my LinkedIn stream so I can share the links on there as well, because the chat doesn't go 2 ways. Give me a second. This is the book link. I also always like to remind people, like this is a new book. Some people don't want to buy the books before reading them. O'Reilly has partnerships with a lot of libraries and universities. So if you have like a university account or a public library account, you can see like Google O'Reilly and your library and see if there's a login, because you can read a lot, if not all their books for free with a university login, which is awesome. And I think the platform has a lot of the other books too, like Manning and everything. What's Manning, like Pact as well. So check that out if you're looking to kind of get digital copies of them. And then I'm going to share the link to the slides. Should be view only, I hope. But I know some people like want to come back and get these links later. Also, I take notes usually in the last slide. So if people do want to kind of bookmark it and come back to any notes or something like that, you can as well. Kenneth said, hello, welcome, Kenneth. And then again, I'll share the, why isn't that showing up in the chat here? We should have chat showing up here. Hopefully the LinkedIn does work, but I don't see Kenneth popping up there yet. Chat should be showing up in the stream as well. See if it does. All right. Well, I'm going to get going here. If I don't see a LinkedIn comment pop up in here, I'm going to go to another tab and make sure I hopefully don't miss them as people are talking. We'll give that a few seconds to see if it does show up. So this was an AI book club for hands-on machine learning with Scikit-Learn and PyTorch. Again, I'll share a link if you want to come up, join the audio and video part of the discussion. Otherwise, you're welcome to discuss and chat. I think I've found that most people in this format do prefer discussing in chat, so you're welcome to do that. If you haven't been to AI Book Club before, in short, we read a new book every month and discuss online. We also have a Slack channel in the Flight Slack group, which I'll share a link to as well. Oh yeah, so for some reason, let me toggle this on and off. I don't see the LinkedIn comments popping up in the stream. I'll have to troubleshoot this later potentially. So I'm going to have to pull up another tab to make sure I don't miss them. I'll get that situated here in a second, and maybe we can get it working, but I won't spend too much time on it, which is a shame because I like it when the comments show up in the stream. Otherwise, though, you'll be able to see them if you join the LinkedIn or YouTube stream. You can comment and discuss in there. But if you want to join a Slack group and discuss in there, there's a channel called AI Book Club. And then there's also a GitHub repo where we're kind of keeping track of the books that we're reading as well. And if you want to suggest any books, let me know in the Slack or in the chat right now. And this is our schedule so far for 2026. We're in January. This is the one we just finished and discussing today. And then in February, next month, we're reading AI Systems Performance Engineering. We're starting off with, I didn't quite realize it, both really not dense books, but large books. So they're both like 1,000 pages. The machine learning with Scikit-Learn was pretty long. The February one, I think, is also going to be pretty long. This one was really good, and the next one I haven't read yet, but looks also incredible. If you're interested about optimizing machine learning systems, it looks really, really interesting. And something we haven't really covered quite in depth before. There is one chapter that was in this book that is maybe some overlap that's like speeding up LMs. It's actually a free online chapter and wasn't included in the book here. I have a link to it later as well. And then in March, we're reading Context Engineering for Multi-Agent Systems. And then let me know what you want to read next. So we have a lot of slots to fill. April, I was thinking about, there's one called, I forget exactly what it's called, but it's about building AI systems with feature stores. Oh, just making sure, did this crash? Having some weird technical difficulties with, hopefully the stream looks okay still. On my end, the streaming back to me is being kind of weird. So let me know if you have recommendations. There's a whole bunch coming out. Last year, these are the ones we read. If you were following along, I know quite a few people come back to the events repeatedly. And then what should we read next? Let me know. So there's a whole bunch coming out that aren't quite out yet that seem really, really interesting, like building AI agents with MCPs, a lot of Gen AI stuff. If you have any specific ones in mind, feel free to message me in the chat on LinkedIn or in the Slack later. And then, so just again, for the people joining in, the format of this is say hello, talk in the live chat. I will send out a link here shortly if you want to join as well. Also, you can just message me on LinkedIn if you want the link to join in the audio or video discussion. And then the recordings are on LinkedIn and YouTube, and that's where we're streaming from. So if you are watching the stream somewhere and you want to come back to the recording, hear what other people have to say, you can come back to wherever you're watching it, and it should still be living there. And then also, before we get into the topics, I always like to ask if people have any other shout outs. So you can throw in the chat, like, are you hiring? Are you looking for a job? Any awesome projects you're working on that you want to share? I know we've had a couple times, at least people get interviews from doing this. So if you're hiring and or if you're looking for a job and you're in a specific field, like shout out that here. Like we had that happen last time with like someone in finance and someone was hiring in that specific industry. So if you're looking for a job, put that in the chat. And with that, I'll get the link to share out if people want to join in the discussion. So usually it's not just me up here the entire time. Let me grab the link. And someone said, to be honest, they have read one book and they loved it. It was Feature Engineering for ML, written by Alec Zheng. Cool. And Amanda Kasari. I'll look at that. I don't think that one might be in the list. I have this giant list on O'Reilly of all the ones that seem interesting. I'll take a look at that, though. That sounds really cool, right up the alley. And then if people want to join in audio or video discussion, I'm going to share a link in the LinkedIn stream. Oops. And also, sometimes there's a little bit of a delay from my stream to when it shows up to you, like not too long, but it might seem weird if I'm sharing something and I'm waiting for a while, because there's like sometimes up to like a 30-second. I don't think it's usually that bad delay, though, between then. Yeah, usually, I don't know why the comments on the LinkedIn stream aren't showing up, which is usually where we point most people to as well. So there's a lot of comments happening on the LinkedIn stream. I'm going to actually cross-post that to the YouTube stream. So if you want to join either discussion, you can. Usually they all get kind of combined here, but it's being weird today. I apologize about that. I don't know why. But it looks like we're streaming on LinkedIn. Just for some reason, the chat isn't coming over to the shared chat here. So as people are potentially joining, I'm going to break out a tab on my end. Sorry, as I get situated here just for this, so I can make sure I have both chats up. And I might just have to refresh that once in a while. It'll be okay. And someone said hello. They really like what we're doing. And they're a Go developer, and they're currently building in public, creating an AI agent that structure free cruises for user experience. And we have John coming up. Hey, John. We'll see if he wants to come back up here in a minute, I guess. Of course. So first, I'll go through the structure of the book, and then people can discuss in the chat and ask questions. Right. So the chapters of the books, if you're interested or you haven't read it, again, let me know if you've read it in the chat as well, or if you're interested in reading it. Chapter 1 was Machine Learning Landscape. Chapter 2 was the End-to-End Machine Learning Project, where you go through and you kind of download data, train a model. They don't really go too much, and then you run it with inference. You don't really go too much into the deployment aspect as much in this book, but it basically covers, like, this is kind of a condensed boot camp, I felt like, in a book form that goes really from beginner machine learning or classic machine learning stuff all the way to the current trends, which I thought was incredible, the amount of stuff they captured in this book. And it just came out in December, so incredibly current. It was really, really good. If you've never done machine learning before, like I was saying, this would be one of the books I think I would start recommending to people. Chapter 3 goes into classification, training classification models, predicting a label like spam or not spam, training models, and we go into decision trees. And I think linear regression was covered in the end-to-end one, maybe. So you build up kind of from simple machine learning models, and then you go into more complex current stuff, classification models, and then talks about training models. We go to decision trees, and then we talk about ensemble learning and random forests. And random forests are a type of model, but they are a ensemble type model. And then we go into dimensionality reduction, and then 8 was unsupervised learning techniques, like principal component analysis and more. And then that was kind of the end of the first more traditional machine learning chapter. And then we go into part 2, which is all deep learning, or neural networks and deep learning. We had an introduction to artificial neural networks, building neural networks in PyTorch, training deep neural networks, deep computer vision using convolutional neural networks. And then it goes into processing sequences using RNNs and CNNs. So if you were kind of around doing deep learning several years ago, before the transformer really, really took off, you might have been playing around with RNNs, doing things like video or image captioning. And then we had natural language processing with RNNs and attention, transformers. This is all the current cool stuff most people are talking about. Transformers for natural language processing chatbots, vision and multimodal transformers. And then this is a chapter that's online. I actually skipped this one because we're going to be reading so much of it next month in the other book. And it wasn't in the book that I was reading, but there is this online. And then we had autoencoders, GANs, and diffusion models. I thought this is a really cool chapter this is a really cool chapter in general. I really like the part on diffusion models. And then we ended with reinforcement learning. So it kind of encapsulates all of the stuff in the machine learning model landscape, not necessarily about building AI systems like RAG and stuff like that. I think it mentions it sometimes, but it's about kind of all the underlying models for all the things that you're seeing today and the previous stuff, which is incredible. Someone asked for the YouTube link. Let me get a couple links sharing in here. Did anyone read the book? And if so, or if you didn't, what chapters sound the most interesting to you? And I'll have to do a test with this chat issue. It's kind of annoying for today. And then if not, we can go through. If anyone doesn't have any comments on specific chapters, we can go through and I kind of go through each chapter and maybe break it down a little bit more. And let me just make sure I'm trying to catch up on this LinkedIn chat that is separate today. John said they dropped off StreamYard. Sorry, no worries. If you do want to join, I'll share that link again as well. Someone asked about how can they acquire the public library account. I made one in person a long time ago. I don't know if you can make one online. That's been quite some time since I made it, like when I first moved to Seattle, which is where I'm streaming from. And I think that was Jay mentioned that you can sign up there as well. Someone asked what the YouTube channel was. I shared it. Someone shared that they're looking for opportunities in the backend / AI engineering space. Something I built recently, an ML deployment and inference platform, which lets you deploy ML models with one line of code. That sounds awesome. And they shared a link to it. Again, that's on the LinkedIn chat. David said they didn't get far, but really like how it packs so much content into one book. They will definitely finish it. Yeah, I thought it was incredible how much they packed in this book. This is a really, really good. Someone said they had started it last week, finished the first 3 chapters. It's quite detailed, information dense. I thought one thing too is really, really information dense, and they have a lot of great code examples. But it felt really easy to read to me. It was just like a really good, not a light read, but it read easily, which is not every technical book does. And I thought there was just really, really good flow. They cited a lot of interesting stuff as well. One thing too, which is like. It's crazy how many times they cite, like Jan LeCun and Jeffrey Hinton, and then also Google DeepMind and OpenAI. Like, I know they've done a lot, but it was just crazy to see like every single model almost is like not exactly from, like, there's other universities and stuff too, but it's kind of mind blowing how much comes out of DeepMind. Not even just recently, but in 2015, like a lot of this foundational stuff was shared from like DeepMind and OpenAI. And then, like I was saying, LeCun and Hinton also, just the amount of citing that they have for all these different models is mind-boggling. Someone said they got through most of the first part. The ensemble techniques random forest part was most interesting to me, probably because they're more familiar with the other techniques. Yeah, and a lot of the, ensemble stuff too, I think you see a little bit later, or you can do later with, LLMs, or even that's a thing right now of specific types of agents is ensemble agents, where they all do different predictions or do different tasks, or they come up with ways to do different tasks, and then you have another thing evaluate it. So a lot of stuff can be applied to, obviously the traditional machine learning stuff has not gone either. That's widely used, but if you are working on some of the LMs or agent stuff, I think a lot of the foundational stuff is pretty interesting to come back to as well. And so it said they're data scientists and recently completed their program at 10 before transitioning into data. Their background's business management. Awesome. Welcome. Also, like I was saying, if you didn't get through the book yet and you want to discuss it more, I shared the Slack channel, or should be in the description, and or I can share it again here. If you want to continue the discussion in the Slack AI Reading Club or AI Reading Group, I think was AI Reading Club, I think is the name of the channel in the group. Someone said, I'm curious why you have 2 live streams on YouTube. Good question. It was an option in StreamYard, so if it's stupid, which it kind of looks like it might be, I might not do next time. There's one option that does it vertical, so it shows up like on people's phones as a live stream, and then there's the normal one. I just tried it as an experiment. I might not do it next time here, especially if it's confusing for anyone. And Mark said, this is fairly similar to their older book, on TensorFlow, but nicely updated with the deep learning content. Yeah, so the older one I didn't read. I know people really praise that one a lot. It's probably just as good as this, just outdated now for the current time. This has all the implementations in PyTorch for deep learning, which is awesome because that's what most people are using now. I also used to be a TensorFlow person myself before kind of switching over. And even, was it like even 6 years ago or 7 years ago, 6 or 5 years ago, it was kind of like people would ask what you should use, TensorFlow or PyTorch, and kind of depended on the situation a little bit. Like TensorFlow still had a little bit more of a mature deployment angle than PyTorch at the time. Now that's definitely not the case, and TensorFlow hasn't had a lot of updates, so you should be using PyTorch or PyTorch wrapper. Like there's Torch Lightning as well, or now it's just Lightning AI. I haven't used them recently, but they're another kind of wrapper. And there's also, I think they even call out in this book, if you want some other wrappers, like there's Fast AI library. There's some other ones that kind of have pre-built training loops and stuff if you don't want to do it. But I think most people like to stay with the PyTorch now. Any other chapters people wanted to call out that was interesting, or chapters you're excited about maybe? Or what books you want to read next? Or if anyone wants to join the stream, I shared the link. Usually, someone asked, can I share the link? Do you mean the Slack link? So Flight is the open source AI orchestration platform that I work on. There is a AI reading club channel in there. Other channels too, if you just want to discuss like machine learning topics or do an introduction. All right, well, I'll go through, maybe break down some of the other chapters. Again, I'll see if people want to join in the conversation more. Usually we have, like I was saying, a couple people that do. If not, we can also end the stream early. Also, one thing that people like about this group is, I mean, I like the discussion piece and talking with everyone. Also, having a date in a book kind of adds some accountability for me reading it. I know I find it really helpful. I know some other people say that too. And if you have just suggestions on like doing the event differently, how to do more Slack discussions in Slack or something, let me know. I'm always interested in like how we can improve the event piece of it. Chapter 1 was the machine learning landscape. So it covered what is machine learning, why use machine learning, examples and applications, types of machine learning systems, the main challenges of ML testing and validation. If you haven't done this before, all really good intros. But someone asked a good question, which was what's the most theoretical math heavy book route for those interested in delving into cutting edge research? If anyone has an answer for that, put it in the chat, either chat and I'll share it. I'm trying to think if I have one off the top of my head, especially for cutting edge stuff. If anyone has a good example for that. This has some math in it. Like it's not super math heavy, but it does have math examples of most of the algorithms that are implemented. If you haven't taken a look at this, I don't know if this one might not have all the cutting edge stuff. But the cutting edge stuff is kind of hard to find in book form, to be honest. I might look at papers like on archive, or one thing that I found that's really good is, let me just pull up the link here. So this shows up in the window. I don't know if anyone's looked at daily papers on Hugging Face. So most of these link back to archive, which they're all hosted. But this is a really good thing. You can subscribe and get a daily email of like the stuff that basically is hot that day or posted on here daily, or you can filter this by weekly, daily, monthly. And this has all the cutting edge research in here. It's not in a book form, it's in papers. But you can go here, see like which one is the most upvoted this last week, and then read the paper again. Most of them are on archive, so you can go there and view the PDF. This is honestly, if you want the most cutting edge stuff, and most of these are pretty mathematical. You know, they go into what they're doing, and sometimes there's code, sometimes they're not. I think in Hugging Face, if you click in, if there is a code repo, I think they'll link it down here as well. I didn't see one for that one. Yeah, so like this one, you can go to GitHub and look at the code as well. Someone said, Niels has Deep Learning Foundations and Concepts by Christopher M. Bishop. And that's different than the classic Ian Goodfellow Deep Learning. Which I'll look at that one Niels mentioned too, because that, let me pull that up real quick. Is that like cutting edge, newer stuff? What is cutting edge? I don't know. A lot of the current stuff that is like blowing up is stuff from 2015, 2017 as well. This is the book that Niels mentioned. I shared in both the chats here. Actually, this one I can probably bring up on screen too. I haven't read this one yet, so I have to take a look at it. But I would trust Niels' recommendations for sure. Oh, coming soon. So this must be, I assume this is pretty new, if some of it's still coming soon, like the exercises. I don't see the publication date. Judd said they got to run. No worries. Thank you for stopping by and saying hello in the chat. Yeah. So Neil says it has up to transformers, graph neural networks, diffusion models, and normalizing flows. Maybe this will be added to the reading list. Let me add a temporary link here. We'll go check this out. Maybe this will be April's read. And again, if anyone has book recs they want to read, which sounds like people are asking for this one, like David, would you want to read this one? We added it for April. I'll share the link again too if people want to join in the audio. If not, fine, you can keep discussing chat. Again, apologize for the chat not coming over into the overlay today. I feel like that usually makes it more fun if you're on the other stream. And someone said they haven't dived into the math, but the Karpathy video on backpropagation gave some intuition they need to watch again. The Karpathy videos are really, really good. 3 Blue, 1 Brown has a pretty good series too. If you haven't seen them on YouTube, they usually do a ton of math concept videos with really good visualizations, and they have a whole deep learning series, like the math of deep learning. It's probably not what David was looking for, I'm guessing, but if you did want another intro to like backpropagation and how deep neural networks work. David said, looks good. Also dense, may need until April to finish. That is fair. Springer books tend to be a little denser, which is not a bad thing. Like they're always really good, but they read a little different than some of the O'Reilly books. Cool, I might add that to the list. No promises yet. Someone said they gotta hop off again. Yeah, no problem. They joined the Slack channel. Feel free to discuss in there. All right, if no one else wants to hop in and join, I'm still watching the chat. So again, keep discussing it there. But I'll keep going through the chapters of this book. Also, Jay shared for foundational math on LMs and NNs in general. Shared a link. Which one was it? Oh, that is 3 Blue, 1 Brown. Just one of the ones I was saying. Yeah, that is a good series. So they have like the LMs and stuff too. All right, so chapter 2. I think, did I read this one out loud already? Working with real data. Talks about messy data. Data's not always clean, like when you import it from Scikit-Learn. Looking at the big picture, getting the data. Again, there's different ways to get data. Depends on where you're consuming it from resources. How to explore and visualize the data to gain insights. You usually want to do that before just training your model. Always helpful. Prepare the data for machine learning algorithms. Select and train a model. Fine-tune your model. Launch, monitor, and maintain your system. They don't go too deep into monitoring. They talk about it a little bit. I've done a lot with monitoring in the past. Always super important when you have a machine learning model in production. It's usually not the end of the story. You want to make sure that it's still performing good. And at the bare minimum, I always recommend just monitoring inputs to your model and outputs of your model. So you can see like, what do the features going in look like? And do those change over time? So if your model was trained on a certain set of features, and then they start going out of scope, like that's called data drift, and chances are your model's not going to be performing super well on it. So something you always want to do when you put some sort of machine learning model in production. You could imagine this with like a chatbot or something as well, where you want to make sure that it's not outputting things that shouldn't be outputting, or all of a sudden it gets really negative, or people aren't asking it questions that it shouldn't answer and it's still answering them. So a whole bunch that you could do around monitoring, and important to think about. They just kind of brush over in this book a little bit. This book is way more about the models, not about building end-to-end systems. Someone in the chat asked for any feedback on hands-on machine learning with Scikit-Learn, Keras, and TensorFlow. So I did not read those. Those are the previous books from the same author. This is just the updated version with PyTorch, because people are using PyTorch over TensorFlow now. And this has the added sections, I think, around LMs. And I'm not sure all the other sections, probably the reinforcement learning section as well. So if you're looking at feedback on which one you should read, it should probably be this current one. I didn't read the other one. It's probably just slightly outdated in terms of TensorFlow and Keras, and it probably doesn't have the newer stuff happening in the field right now around LLMs and diffusion models. Chapter 3, talked about classification, go to the MNEST dataset, the training a binary classifier, performance measures, multi-class classification, error analysis, multi-label classification, multi-output classification. And then 4 was training models. I'll go through these pretty quick because there's 19 chapters. So anyone stop me if there's something you want to discuss more on, or join the audio or video discussion part of it as well. Chapter 4 was linear regression. Okay, so yeah, chapter 4 went more into linear regression, not before the classification one. Then we talked about gradient descent, polynomial regression, learning curves, regularized learning, linear models, logistic regression. And then 5 go into decision trees, one of the most popular traditional machine learning models. I feel like this, in random forest, which is another subset of decision trees. Training and visualizing a decision tree. One thing that's really cool is if you've used decision trees and looked at them, they're pretty interpretable. So you can see how they break down the decisions they do for making the decisions, which is really great. Making predictions, estimating class probabilities, the CART training algorithm. I forget what CART stands for off the top of my head. I can look it up, but this is the type of decision tree that is in Scikit-Learn by default. And you can also use these for regression as well, not just for classification. Computational complexity. J impurity or entropy, regularization, hyperparameters. Did I see someone join the chat and leave, or join the video and leave? Regression, sensitivity to axis orientation, decision trees have a high variance. Talks about bias variance trade-off. Ensemble learning and random forests, voting classifiers, bagging and pasting. It's kind of how you can separate the data for your models to make predictions on or be trained in. Boosting, stacking. 7, dimensionality reduction, the curse of dimensionality. Main approaches for dimensionality reduction. Principal component analysis, random projection. I forget what LE stands for. It was a while since I read the earlier chapters here. I can pull this up actually real quick. Let me pull up the book. Again, if anyone has any questions they wanted to stop on, let me know. I should have had the book up already. And usually someone comes up here and talks, but people aren't feeling talkative today, I guess, which is fine. But you're talking in the chat, which is also really fun. So keep talking in the chat. That makes it more fun for everyone as well, I think. If anyone happens to know how to troubleshoot the weird chat issue with StreamYard today, too, let me know. I have not seen that before, where it's just not bringing in the LinkedIn chat for the event, but it's streaming to it. So not sure what's going on there. Let's see. Ellie, locally linear embedding. Oh, someone also, I think, just got to that in the chat. Before I did, I usually will add the actual words here in the slides, but I forgot. I was kind of cramming to make them while working. 8, unsupervised learning. Talks a lot about clustering. Introduction to artificial neural networks, from biological to artificial neurons. Like most of the books will say, they're kind of inspired by some of the research on neurons in animals, but then they kind of look very different. So it's like debatable if you should even call them that or whatever anymore. Building and training multi-layer perceptrons, MLP, with Scikit-Learn. So they actually have, I've never really used the perceptron part in Scikit-Learn. Has anyone done that before? So they actually have a little deep learning thing in Scikit-Learn that I don't think I've ever used. I don't think you can run it on a GPU. I'm sure that's just one of the reasons why it's not popular. So usually when you're training like a deep neural network, you want to use a GPU for the computations. And I don't think you can run it, maybe even the inference probably on the MLPs in Scikit-Learn, but they have a built-in thing. So if you do want to play around with perceptrons and building like lightweight neural networks, you can actually do that in Scikit-Learn, which I think I had seen at some point before and totally forgot. So that was interesting to see pop up again. We had hyperparameter tuning guidelines. And then chapter 10, we had building neural networks with PyTorch. It was into PyTorch fundamentals, implementing linear regression, implementing a regression as a multi-layer perceptron, implementing mini-batch gradient descent using data loaders. The data loader feature inside PyTorch is pretty cool for reading in data. And you can shuffle it and do augmentations. Talks about model evaluation. Usually, if you haven't done deep learning before, you usually want to separate your data into 3 different sets, like training, validation, and testing. And then as you're training your model, usually running on the validation data set, and then you have the and you use that validation output to kind of fine tune like your hyperparameters. And then you test that model once it's trained on like a holdout test data set. So it talks about that. And then building non-sequential models. So originally it just shows like putting all the perceptrons together. There's different ways to do this in PyTorch, and a lot of the bigger models have skips and stuff like that inside the neural network. So it shows how to do that. So again, really good introduction. If you're looking to just have an introduction to PyTorch, I thought this was a really fantastic part of the book for it if you hadn't done PyTorch before and you've been waiting to get into it. And Niels mentioned that he's used it. I think this is for the multi-layer perceptron inside Scikit-Learn. They've used it, but just for XGBoost and RF models. And then you build your first image classifier, and then you fine-tune neural network hyperparameters with Optuna, and then talks about saving models, PyTorch models. A lot of the times, too, in the book, they are using Colab, which is great. I use Colab for most of the examples and stuff that I often build as well. But they also, like, I think they briefly mention it in the book. If you just save a model in there, and then you reload Colab, like, you're going to lose it if it gets disconnected. So make sure if you're doing that in Colab that you also download it. And then compiling and optimizing PyTorch models. So how to compile this to a more optimal model for running, not just for running on like smaller devices. They, again, just go briefly into it. And then 11 is training deep neural networks. Talks about the vanish, exploding gradient problems, reusing pre-trained layers. So like transfer learning or fine-tuning now is the term that a lot of people use. Faster optimizers, learning rate scheduling, avoiding overfitting through regularization. And then 12, again, I said there was a lot of chapters in this book. It was, if you look at the book in person, I don't have the physical book. I have a digital copy. It's like this thick. It's almost like 1,000 pages. And I think next book is also pretty thick. So also get if you don't get through all the chapters as thoroughly as you wanted, like just in the month time, but you can keep reading or discussing it in the Slack channel like we had mentioned before. 12 goes into deep computer vision using convolutional neural networks. So again, the more kind of classical computer vision piece, if you've done this before. Talks about, actually, I thought this was interesting. So just like how the other one talked about like the artificial neurons being inspired by like actual neurons in the brain, I've used like CNNs a lot before, but I actually didn't realize that some of that had come from a part of research on eyes that actually does have part of the visual cortex where kind of does read in information. Like in the convolutional neural networks, you have layers of convolutions that are like filters, and that actually came from inspiration of the visual cortex where there are layers that it seems like you perceive it like vertical lines better and horizontal lines better. I actually didn't know that came from like research on the brain, which I thought was pretty interesting. Talks about putting this all together, convolutional layers, pooling layers, which is where you're kind of condensing the image down, implementing those pooling layers with PyTorch, convolutional neural network architectures. This is a breakdown, a whole bunch of different ones. So it's kind of fun as a history book as well. Like I mentioned, it reads really fun, even if you're not running all the code, because a lot of it feels like a very detailed history of book, and it breaks down a lot of the different CNN architectures and like what year they came. Again, seeing how much cited lacunas is crazy, and Jeffrey Hinton. Like I think they had breakthroughs in all those architectures. Implementing ResNet with CNN and PyTorch, so going through and building that from scratch, using Torch Vision's pre-trained model. So like a lot of people, if you're actually putting this in production, you're not inventing your own model. You're taking something like a ResNet. Those are already pre-built in PyTorch or other places like Hugging Face, and you can download them and then fine-tune them on your data set. Do classification and localization. So classification you're probably familiar with, like cat or dog, hot dog, not hot dog. And then localization is like object detection, where you can actually figure out where the object is inside of the image and then draw something like a bounding box or the pixels around it. And then object tracking, once you do object detection and you want to know from frame to frame, like in a video, where does that thing go? That's where object tracking comes in. And they just mentioned like one algorithm in here. There's a whole bunch of different ways to do it. They mentioned deep sort, which they have in the chapter. There's various data that goes into object tracking. It's like a small Kalman filter, basically, which is cool. And then semantic segmentation. That's where one of the ways where you can drop pixels around where an object is. You also have like instant segmentation, which is kind of closer to object detection. that they don't cover in the book. And then chapter 13 was processing sequences using RNNs and CNNs. So it talks about recurrent neurons and layers, training RNNs. And again, if you were in the deep learning space a while ago, you might have worked with RNNs or looked at them. That was kind of what you were doing before transformers. So you have kind of this loop that you feed data back into your neural network, and it gets kind of like some form of attention, basically in there. And they're also used, actually, I think before they even go into the attention space, this chapter, they focus on like forecasting with RNNs. And then they have natural language processing. This is the chapter they go more into building the more classic type of things that you did with RNNs before transformers got really big. So generate Shakespeare text. You can see that it's interesting to see like what was coming before transformers. And then also there's some resurgence. I think I've seen some papers with like RNNs kind of coming back in certain ways. I forget what the paper's titled. If anyone has it, feel free to share it in the chat or you can look it up. Sentiment analysis using Hugging Face libraries, an encoder decoder network for neural machine translation, beam search, which is one of the methods for looking back at all the text that was generated. And so this is interesting because this chapter builds up a lot of the stuff that was around before, like the current chatbots, but some of the other stuff like beam search is still used, where it looks at basically all the text generated and then kind of fixes some of the generated text. So like you've probably seen this when you've asked Google something in the past and it's typing something out and then it gets further along and it goes back and changes like a word from before because it thinks it would work better. That was at least beam search that was doing that before. And then it talks about some attention mechanisms before we get into chapter 15, which is the transformers for natural language processing and chatbots. And then this goes into all the current attention stuff that you're more familiar with or that you've been hearing about. The attention is all you need, the original transformer architecture, building English to Spanish transformer. So originally the attention or the transformer was made for translating between two languages. And then it talks about encoder-only transformers for natural language understanding, decoder-only transformers. This is leftover menu items. Tuning a large language model into a chatbot. So left in another one here. And then encoder and decoder models. And then 16 was vision and multimodal transformers. This is a pretty cool chapter. I haven't done a ton with like the current VLM stuff that's out there. Also an interesting history of seeing just like where all the vision transformer models came from. This also goes into, unless it was a different chapter, this also goes into like clip and blip and all the kind of progression of where we are now with models. And I don't think this one goes, this might talk a little bit about, no, I think the other chapter does the generative stuff like GANs and diffusion models. So then this is the one that was online. I skipped this one. I might go read it later, but also next month's book is all about optimization. And then 16 was visual. Wait, sorry, I went backwards. 18, this is the one, autoencoders, GANs, and diffusion models. Although this was pretty cool. So it goes through all the, again, these chapters kind of read like history lessons with technical implementations. So this talks about autoencoders where you encode like an image, for example, is how they were used a lot into latent space. And then when you decode it, you can generate a new image from it. So like compresses an image and then pulls it back out in a neural network. And then it talked about different ways of doing this: stacked autoencoders, convolutional autoencoders, denoising autoencoders. And then you start getting into GANs, which I actually did a lot of work with GANs in the past. It was a really cool thing where we had like generating original architecture design based on other like architecture buildings that we trained it on. And it was really interesting. I had really good, really cool results, I would say, for the time. now they don't look as good. And then they say basically, you know, as you've probably seen, most of the field for generating images right now, I believe, is using diffusion models. They mentioned that GANs does generate them faster than having a trained diffusion model, but the diffusion models right now, I think, are just blowing everything else out of the water. So most things you use are diffusion models, but this is a really good introduction to how diffusion models work too. And then the last chapter was reinforcement learning, what is reinforcement learning, policy gradients, value-based methods, actor-critic algorithm, mastering Atari breakout using stable baselines, and PPO implementation. So they actually go through and they use the not OpenAI Gymnasium, the successor to it, the open source successor. What is that? Is it Gymnasium or Open Gymnasium? And then a quick overview of some of the popular reinforcement learning algorithms. And I don't think it was captured in the kind of subchapters here, but in the training LLM one, they also go into like this tuning one. They go into like full fine tuning for the weights, but they also go into some of the policy training methods, like the DPO and PPO policy for LLMs as well. And I had shared this before, but let me share it again. So, the code is available on GitHub for the book. I'll share this in the chat. So if you want to check out the code for all this, even if you don't have the book, this is true for most books, you can go check out the GitHub. I obviously recommend buying the book and supporting the authors. But for most technical books, you can look up their GitHub. And if you just want to look for the code, actually, that might have been a good idea for this one because it's actually organized pretty well. We could have gone through maybe some of the code. But so if you want to check any of those out, basically these are in a notebook form. And you don't get all the cool, really longer explanations and, like I said, technical history lessons. But if you do want to look at the code for any of those chapters, you can find that here. And David said they tried to jump ahead to chapter 16 because multimodal is really interesting, but I was lost. But it was interesting that they use NLP to create images. So yeah, 16 was the vision transformers. And then I think 18 is the more generative part of the, I guess, kind of multimodal things. And then the 16 is the vision and multimodal transformers. But yeah, they do start talking about it in this case. So you might want to check out chapter 18 as well if that's where you're interested in. And one other thing outside of the book that I have a shout out for too is actually running a workshop next week. So if you want to implement some agents hands-on, you can join me at that workshop. It should be hopefully a lot of fun. We'll go through and we'll build a planner agent system, and we'll also deploy it on Flight V2, which if you haven't seen that before, it's going to be really cool. It's a way to scale out your machine learning workflows or AI workflows like agents, but also fine tuning. I forgot to mention it earlier during the shout out section because I got excited about the person that was looking for a job. So I said, thank you for sharing the agent workshop details. So yeah, no problem. Hopefully I'll see you there. If you haven't built an agent before, I mean, it should be fun if you have as well. But if you haven't built an agent before, it should also be a good intro kind of to what that can look like for you. But we'll also see kind of how to build durable production grade agents at the same time. So hopefully it's going to be a fun intro to both of those concepts if you haven't done one or the other. And we're getting close to the hour. This time, like I was saying, usually we have at least one other person comes up here. We used to have some regulars that did it. I think they've had other things come up in their life, so they can't join anymore. If you want to come up and talk next time, let me know as well. It's usually more fun, at least for me, if it's not just me talking to myself. I mean, not that I quite feel to myself because people are talking in the chat, which is really fun. But if you ever want to come up and discuss in the audio format, like you don't have to turn on your camera if you don't want to, or just come up here and on stage and talk about things, you're always welcome to as well. But any last shout outs from anyone before we close out the hour? I'll also be, if anyone's going to NVIDIA GDC, I will be down there. Which is March 16th through 19th. And that's NVIDIA's giant event they do every year. It's really fun. I've gone the last 2 years. It's been one of my favorite conferences to go to. The amount of people that come down there is awesome. I'll be down there. Someone asked which days. I'll be down there the 16th through 19th. So at GDC of March. It's in San Jose. It's their in-person conference. That one, there's usually a ton of robots around, which I always think is really fun. Any other last things before we wrap up? Reminder that the next book is going to be the AI Systems Performance Engineering. And Mark said, thank you for the fun and informative presentation. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know that too. Sometimes when I'm just up here talking to myself too, it's like, I don't know, people liking it. And Jay said, looking forward to the workshop next week. Hopefully it'll be fun again. RCP. If you found it on Luma, or I shared the event here, I'll probably just send an invite out to everyone who RCP'd on this as well, if you RCP'd on Luma. And then I need to post it to Meetup still as well. I just made it the other day. And I think we'll be doing some regular workshops again. So if you do know me from last year, I did a whole bunch of workshops. I want to get those going again. So we'll be doing actually probably a lot of stuff that's kind of covered in this book, but with some like production grade implementations around, fine tuning large language models in different ways, deploying them, and then agents is really fun right now. I'm building a lot of kind of fun examples with agents, so hopefully doing those as workshops as well. So if you have anything that you're interested in, though, let me know in the chat. Like, what else would you want to see more of? Or what are you all working on right now? I think only 1 or 2 people mentioned what they're building. I'll share the Slack group link one more time too. So if you want to join there, there's actually an introductions channel. There's also a jobs channel. So some of the people that said they were looking or that they're hiring, you can post in there. A lot of the ones posted there are about companies that use Flight right now. And David said, thank you for the stream. Have a great day. Thank you, David, for coming and talking in the chat. I'll also share, so Flight, like we mentioned, is an open source workflow and inference platform. And like thousands of companies use it. It's pretty big. If you haven't checked it out, check out V1 kind of repo here. And then we have something really exciting coming. Is the SDK is already open source for V2, but we have V2 coming, which is what you'll get a preview of in the workshop next week. And Neil says he's building an MCP server and agent for Flight, which is very exciting. I think you're going to really like it a lot. Oh yeah, Neil's isn't talking tonight, but someone else is actually giving a presentation on the MCP server in San Francisco tonight, which I think that event is already booked out. Otherwise, I would go try to find the link and share it, but I think it's already kind of booked out. And if you aren't following Niels yet, you should do so. If you see him in the chat, Niels also works at Union. He's awesome. And I really liked his recommendation for the next read when someone asked about the cutting edge math heavy book, which we haven't really done one of those in the book club. So that could be fun. All right, so I think we're wrapping up here. If you have anything else to say in the chat, feel free to do so. In the next 2 minutes, while you're doing that, I'm going to poke around at this StreamYard chat and just see if there's something obvious why LinkedIn is not showing up here. May just have to try it again next time and see. The only thing different this time was streaming on vertical for YouTube as well. So I don't think that would do it, but I see some people even commenting on the vertical one too. So I don't know if people found this on their phone more. So if we should keep that again next time or not. All right, I might just have to try a test stream later. Or now that I'm thinking about it too, I think I actually, now I'm just rambling, but I think when I created this event, I created it first on LinkedIn and then connected to it. And usually I create it both from StreamYard. It shouldn't cause that issue, but I wonder if that's it too. Maybe I'll create the next one. Or, well, I guess we'll see on the next one. The next one I think I've already created on LinkedIn. We'll see what happens. But the next one, I'll do it the other way and see what happens. Worst case, I have to do the split chat thing again, which is kind of weird and annoying, but it might be okay. And then I'll try creating it the other way. Someone said repost the StreamYard link. I'm going to go ahead and end the stream right now, so I'm not going to do that just because we're wrapping up already. But next time, I'll share it out again for sure if you want to join live. But it's 2 o'clock. I got to go back to do some other work, unfortunately. So I'm going to wrap up the stream. I will hopefully see some of you at the next book club. Again, the AI systems for performance engineering, and then also the workshop next week for the agents. If you're interested, I'll send out the invite as well. All right, I'll talk to some of you all later. Have a good day, everyone.